Hi, I'm Paul Kelly. In this video I'd like to introduce you to some of the more advanced features of the AccessPack system. At this stage I'm assuming that you have an AccessPack installed, that you've done a basic configuration, and that the cards are essentially working as they should do, and you can activate the equipment using them. What I'd like to do here is go through the tabs at the bottom of the Pocket Field Service Utility application, explain what each of them does, and how you can use it to change the behavior of the system. On the usage screen, we see the date and time and the name of the operator who swiped the card and whether that card was successful in activating the machine. At the bottom, we can refresh that list so you can test this in real time. We can load the remaining 190 of the 200 events, and we can save the list to a file on the PDA. On the next tab, we have the presets. Now, we came here before. What's important to note here is that when you select a preset from the list, the blue screen and the blue box in the middle of the screen updates to include a description of those settings. The full list of settings for each preset is listed in an appendix of the Pocket Field Service Utility User Guide. The Set button, as you will recall, writes these preset configurations. The Motion tab is perhaps the most complicated of all the tabs and consists of a number of sliders. When you select a slider, the description in the blue box down the bottom changes to explain what that slider does and what its current setting is and what it means. Motion settle time is the amount of idle time that an AccessPack waits before it looks for motion when it changes states. Motion threshold is the basic sensitivity of the AccessPack to motion. So if it's a noisy or vibrating environment, you might set that higher. If it's a pendant, you might set it to about 15. Setting it to 0 will disable the motion threshold, and it will never use motion sensing to log anybody out. The next tab, Motion Timeout, is the amount of time between when the AccessPack thinks it's motionless and it starts flashing the red light on the AccessPack to warn the operator that he's about to be logged off. And the next one is the amount of time after the red light flashes that before the operator is actually logged off the equipment. The RFID scan timeout is how long it sits there flashing the red and green lights, looking for a card before it goes back to sleep. Set this to a small number, 6 or 7 seconds on a battery-powered equipment, and to a much larger number if you're on a pendant or a car. If setting it to 0, of course, means it will continue to look for a card indefinitely. The AccessPack mode allows you to configure the AccessPack such that any card will activate the equipment, and you don't need to use the AccessPack Manager software to configure permissions on a card. It's useful for trials and small sites. You can log unauthorized cards here. Bear in mind, if you do that, if you record failed attempts, it reduces the amount of memory you have available to record unfailed attempts. My Fair settings, this allows you to configure the system to use only part of a card, and you might do this if you're using a customer's existing site access control card and it has other functions as well. You generally won't touch those settings though. Okay, the Signals tab, Heartbeat Timeout, is used to sets how long before a flashing LED or a pulse tacho on a wheel or a velocity sensor stops changing state before you're logged out. And it's used to monitor things like flashing lights on radios, such that if the radio itself times out, then the AccessPack will log you off. Emergency stop invert, we've been there before, that toggles the state of the input. Edge triggered emergency stop. Set the heartbeat timeout to 0 to disable that feature. Edge triggered stops are used for some stationary equipment configuration where you want to be able to retain the function of a start button on the device. And the output modes, pendant and door, determine how the auxiliary output from the AccessPack is used. On a pendant, in pendant mode, it pulses, and we use that to push the start button. We use that to push the start button on a pendant, and when it's not in pendant mode, the auxiliary output just changes state from high to low, indicating whether we're logged on or not. And we use that to enable something like the ignition on a vehicle. In door mode, changes the behavior of the AccessPack such that it pulses an output which is meant to drive a door latch, and just a red or green light comes on to indicate whether the door is locked or unlocked. And that's pretty much it for the advanced features of the AccessPack. When you're done with these things, tap Exit and make sure you give it a good test. Cheers.